Welcome to Ops Up Inside Your Head, the conversation for ops leaders who want to focus on making their habits and their organization amazing. We meet amazing guests from the world of operations that have been there, done that. The conversations are about unlocking what makes them amazing. We are joined today by the brilliant Milly, who is founder of Pay As You Go COO. She is a serial startup COO, ex-Amazon, an expert in residence at the Imperial's Enterprise Lab. She believes everyone deserves a chance to make their entrepreneurial dreams a reality, and Pay As You Go COO was created to make that happen. Milly is an expert company builder, and through her affordable coaching packages and flexible operations and consulting, can help get more shit done and build a company that is destined to succeed. Hello, Milly.
Hello, thank you for such a nice introduction.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for writing it. I love the challenge as a raving dyslexic of reading stuff, and that's the challenge I've inflicted on myself, but I love it. And there's so much in there I just want to dive into. So let's get into it. Who are you? Tell me about your journey.
So I have been a COO since 2018. So I first started as an interim COO in early stage companies, partly through choice, but also partly through necessity, because as we know, about 62% of UK companies will fail. And so very early stage companies is not a long-term career option to be in a single one always. So before that, I have about 20-ish years of experience of all kinds of organizational design and project management things. So basically just, as you said, get shit done, tidy stuff up and make things happen. I'm a completer finisher. I make sure that projects that need to happen, and that everything is really transparent. So I got into ops just after I finished my MBA. So I was working full-time at Amazon whilst getting my MBA part-time. Do not recommend that as a lifestyle choice if you enjoy sleeping or having any kind of life around it.
Amazon or an MBA, or both combined in the same point?
Both combined at the same time. It was not, I'm excellent at time management, and it was a real struggle to get both of those things done at the same time. But whilst I was doing that, I realized that actually I didn't want to be in a later stage company. I thought that I was doing the MBA to kind of further my career in the big tech companies, but it just didn't actually seem to make sense to me the more that I learned about. For me, it's the genesis of success. What do you set up in the early stages of a business that can make that business destined for success? Why do some companies like Amazon make it, but why do most companies fail? And so that was, for me, why I went into operations. For me, it's about the moving parts of the organization. It's about all of the different elements coming together like perfect cogs in a well-oiled machine and just making things run. And that's something I'm really passionate about. So it's been a wonderful experience to be in ops in so many different early stage companies.
Yeah. And it's definitely that cog thing. That's what I see ops is, making sure all the cogs are turning and then changing the cogs and re-gearing it when a new challenge comes up. I love that.
Yes, I refer to myself sometimes as being like organizational WD-40. So just make sure that everything is smooth and everything is running, nothing is breaking down.
I love it. And and WD-40 goes a long way. In my house, when we moved in, we've got a handy tin of WD-40, which must have been in this house for about 30 years now. But it just does the job. Still going, it's like rusty, but it's got handy from changing rooms, whatever it was in the early 2000s. It's still going strong.
Yeah, I mean, as something myself in the late 30s that's still going strong.
Congratulations, well done. So I have a question for you then. So one of the prerequisites to make it onto this conversation is you should have ops in your title. You've said you're introed as founder, but you have a slightly different spin on that. So do you want to give us your other spin on the founder title that you've got?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I wear two hats. So one is founder of the business, so making sure that the business runs. And then the other is what I call the chief operating officer. So actually doing the projects for other people and making sure that I can be the COO in someone else's business, but I can also be the chief COO overseeing a project in which I bring in other ops professionals to facilitate. So I call myself founder and chief operating officer, but I think I ran out of characters in my LinkedIn headline to be able to include that in a sensible way.
Good. Okay, amazing. And I'm glad you said chief operating officer, because I could just about squeeze that one out. Okay. So another one is, you said you've had various ops roles. Can you list all of your job titles up until this point? The reason why I ask is I found that people who end up in ops come from lots of random places. So I'm always intrigued that those job titles all the way up to the point you are at now. So on the spot, can you really? Yeah, so if it goes,
it's just
so
any
mine's
job.
like waiter, cook,
Okay.
children's entertainer. There's another bit to that, but so
Okay.
what is your story of employment to get to the world of being the chief operating officer?
I think the first ever job that I had was in the local pharmacy where I lived. So I think I was maybe pharmacy assistant, but I think in reality that was just hemorrhoid cream salesperson. It's a very aging population where my parents lived when I had my first job. Then what would I have done then? I think I was I was a move coordinator. So I worked for Pickford's Removals as a move coordinator, so making sure that house moves worked. Then I would have been, I think I worked in a shop after that. So as a shop assistant, then I would have been some kind of secretary, organizing things for people who couldn't organize things. And then I went to undergrad. So I took 3 years out to work before I did my undergrad to kind of figure out more about the life. After undergrad, I was a writer. So I wrote my first book. I've written 5 books. I wrote my first book as a writer. I realized that was actually really lonely and I didn't like it very much. Then I was a project secretary. So I worked for Norman Foster's architectural practice and helped administrate the projects. Then I was a PA, so I worked in radio, worked for Capital FM's parent company, so I helped organise lots of events there. Then I moved into account management, so I moved into the sales side of things. Then I went to Amazon, where my job title internally was just a series of acronyms. So everything at Amazon is just a series of acronyms. You have to know the lingo to be able to understand what people do. But it was essentially business development. And then I moved into a second role at Amazon that also had a bunch of acronyms, but was basically strategic consultancy. Then I became a COO. So my first COO role, then I think I had some slightly different operations related titles. You know, in an early stage startup, sometimes your COO, your chief of staff are basically the same thing, head of ops, like depending on the stage of the business. I think I've been head of commercial, I think at one point head of commercial, head of product or something, which is basically actually just operations, but mainly it's been COO since then. Until I gathered, maybe I've spent too long at Amazon. Now I'm calling myself the CCOO. Have I gone back to acronym land? Do I need to make my life choices?
that is a varied path as well. You've touched loads of different jobs and loads of different industries. But
it's all been about getting stuff done and organizing things. That's been the leitmotif across the whole of my career. It's just been making things happen.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, great. You got a really good picture of how you've got to where you are today. I have a question about Amazon. So on my journey to help 100 ops leaders get home, I'm connecting with loads of ops leaders on LinkedIn, and there seems to be 1 billion ops managers at Amazon. Can you answer the question, why are there 1 billion ops managers at Amazon?
I don't know. I was never an ops manager at Amazon, so I don't actually know what the role looks like. But knowing it's a huge company. Getting stuff done in a large company is very, very difficult. It's one of the things that I like so much about early stage businesses is that you can affect more change. So I'm extrapolating here, but perhaps it's because it's really hard to get things done in a company that's that big. They say it's like turning a cruise ship. So I can't 100% say why there are so many ops leaders, but I can imagine because ops is so important. Every company needs an ops leader. I really think it should be your first hire before, if you're not an operational founder, if you're not someone who's capable of getting stuff done, your first hire should be someone who is. But yeah, imagine just getting shit done. Everybody wants to get shit done, even Jeff.
Even Jeff wants to get shit. Yeah, but it is, isn't it? It's that. If things aren't aligned, you're wasting ton of time, you're wasting money, you're annoying people. It's just not good for anybody.
No, and especially in an organization that's so beholden to its shareholders and to its stock value, it makes complete sense.
Absolutely. Cool. Right. So we're now going to do a bit of a deep dive into you and about what makes you tick and what made you such an amazingly productive human being. 5 books as well. Business books or fiction?
4 business, 1 fiction.
Okay, cool, amazing. And what's the title of the fiction book?
Absolutely not telling you, it was so terrible. But I will tell you about the next one that I'm writing. So I'm in the process of writing my 6th book, which is a fiction book for kids, and it's about soulmates, but they are SOLE mates, so they're shoes, and your soulmate is the other half of the soul. And it stars a character called Dennis Liu the tennis shoe, because he's an American brand shoe, but he's made in China. He's Dennis Liu the tennis shoe, and he hangs out with his friend Phil the espadrille and Philippe Flop, and it's called Soulmates, but SOLE mates, and I will finish that at some point.
Amazing. There's so much going on in just that explanation as well. Brilliant, cool. I love a tangent, but I'm going to come back to the world of ops because that's what we're here to talk about today. So, your world, what's your go-to morning routine to get you into that productive space so that you are the all singing, all dancing version of yourself that is producing so much into the world?
It's such a good question, and I think a lot about my morning routine, especially because you see so many of those things like, oh, this is the morning routine of the rich and the famous, and you have to be up at 5 a.m, etc., etc. So I want to caveat this by saying this is what works for me and not what I necessarily recommend, because I think we get enough messages about how to be efficient and productive in the mornings. But I have a neurological disability. I have chronic hemiplegic migraine, and it means that sleep is very, very important for me. So I'd say my morning routine starts the night before, where I make sure that I've had a really decent amount of sleep. So I am happy to admit that these days I am the grandma of all grandmas, and I will go to bed 10 o'clock, happy times. Don't care if it's the weekend, don't care if it's the week. So my morning routine starts by making sure that I get enough sleep. Then I'm up at 6 every day, regardless of whether it's the weekend, the week. I'm always up at 6, and I always start the day with a coffee. It's the first thing I do is stumble into the kitchen and make myself a coffee. So one of my dear friends from business school has a coffee company, and so I drink his coffee, and that is some of the best non-jittery caffeine I've ever had in my life. So I can start my day with caffeine, but also feeling chill. Then I will try to read for a bit. So at the moment I'm reading The 3-Body Problem. They've just started making the Netflix series of it. That's just come out. So I'm reading the 2nd book of that. I'm a voracious reader. And I try and read things that make me think in different ways. So whether it's a different world, a different universe, like for example, what I love about 3-Body Problem is that it was written originally in Mandarin and is translated. And so that the linguistic style of it is so different to a book that would have been traditionally written, like how it would sound if it was written first in English. And so I think it's really making me think about communication. Then I like to get ready. So I work from home almost exclusively, but I still get ready every day. So I make sure that I've done my hair and I've put very minimal amounts of makeup on, but I'm wearing like actual clothes. And unless I'm feeling really rancid, in which it's like nice yoga clothes. And then I am always at my desk by say 8:30, 8:45, and I will work for a couple of hours in the morning. And then I will take a break and have some breakfast when I've kind of got the first thoughts out of my head and into whatever it was that I need to do. I do a lot of thinking overnight, it seems. So I wake up in the morning with a lot of ideas fully formed in my brain, and then I have to just execute them. And then I split my day in the morning between client work or work for my own business, depending on what is necessary in the morning. But client work is always a priority. If I have client work, that needs to get done first. Otherwise, then I look at my business work.
Okay, cool. That's interesting that you prioritize the clients over your business. Is that a hard and fast rule, or is there a point in the week where you have ring fence just for your business to make sure that it still operates?
Such a good question. It's Wednesdays. Wednesdays are my day. I really like Wednesdays. I don't do client work on Wednesdays unless there's an emergency. I'm obviously not going to leave a client in the lurch because I've got some arbitrary system in my head of what makes a good week. But yeah, generally Wednesdays is when I do. So I have the morning blocked out to get my content marketing done. So I write a lot, as evidenced by my books, but I also write blog articles every day. So I have a blog called The Operating Table, which is about dissecting startups. So I write an article for that every week, and then that gets repurposed. I work with an incredible woman called Caroline who helps me break my marketing down into that, and that's what we do on a Wednesday morning. So whether it's creating graphics in Canva, or it's turning, when I write a lot. So whether it's cutting that down into something that's digestible, and then I'll do something like a piece of training in the afternoon on Wednesdays. So I took a coaching course recently. I did a data science course not that long ago. I love doing the certifications for the tools that I use. At the moment, I'm doing a growth hacking, growth marketing course, and that takes place on a Wednesday afternoon. So it's all about like content marketing in the morning, and then something that is enriching my brain and furthering my ability to deliver for my clients.
Wow, what's striking me already is just how the structures you've built in your world that just help you get things done. Like you're running through your Wednesdays like it is all segmented, and you're like, yeah, and then I'm going to grow myself as well. I'm going to get things done, and then I'm going to grow. And it's just like that's amazing. Where are you trying to grow to at the moment? What is the area that you're focusing on?
So at the moment, I'm focusing on relaunching the what pay-as-you-go COO is. So it originally, there's a big movement in the US about fractional ops people and fractional leaders in general. So I absolutely appreciate the demand for it. You know, in an early stage company, which are the companies that I'm really passionate about, you can't afford a full-time senior hire. You know, you're talking, say, 100K minimum salary for an early stage COO, and you know, say you're raising pre-seed of 250, you can't spend 100K of that on your COO. So I can see the need for fractionals that can come in and do little bits here and there. And excuse me, I had started out thinking that I would work just hourly for different companies, and so thank goodness that I'm good at segmenting my time, because it became very, very difficult. I had so many different clients that would have an hour of time here, 2 hours here, a bit here, and the context switching was fine. And I'd keep everything in separate tabs and make sure that I was really focused into the hourly stuff, but I just don't really think it works anymore. So I'm focusing now on relaunching. So I've been spending a lot of time redoing my website, and I'm working with an amazing salesperson called Tom, who's going to help me talk to more clients and more investors in a very different way. So it's all about relaunching it, not just as I'm the fractional COO that can do whatever you need. I'm like the Swiss Army knife of jobs. It is more, what's your biggest problem? What's your discrete bundled thing that we can solve for you? And I'll do that as a project. So that's what I'm really focusing on at the moment. So I'm taking a lot of advice from a lot of people. I'm researching, I'm learning, I'm looking at what other people are doing. So that's my big focus for growth at the moment.
Yeah, really interesting, because my next question is, what habit do you need to retire? And I think it sort of, you could pull a thread out of that conversation and continue that.
What habit do I need to retire?
Like one of the things I see on people's ops journeys is they've built some habits and frameworks that work really well, and they either get promoted or they go to a new organization, and something that's previously been their best friend in the world of getting stuff done no longer serves them. Is there something that you're thinking about? What do I need to cut? What should I retire now?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think there's can I be an overachiever and give you two answers? Because that's just,
absolutely.
Yeah. I think the first one would be the habit of overthinking things. I don't know if that's a habit or if it's just the fact that I'm basically a ball of anxiety masquerading as a human. But overthinking things, I think, is something that I do. And I really noticed that this week. So this week I got accepted into a couple of different service-based accelerators for the business, which has been really interesting, because I've always been building other people's businesses. Building my own business and thinking about more of the vision side of things is a very different skill set for me. I can turn anyone's crazy vision into a well-formed strategy, but I've never come up with the crazy vision myself, so now I'm having to come up with the crazy vision. And I got accepted into these two service-based accelerators, and both of them have been just things that I already know and things that I don't need to revisit. And I think I've thought to myself, because I always want to grow and I always want to change and I always want to be better and I'm always thinking about how I can improve, I assumed that going into these accelerators and listening to other people's ideas would be the way to do that. And I think actually in hindsight, I need to stop overthinking it and realize that, yeah, you do actually know what you're doing. You can build a business. Sure, you've operated a business before, but the slightly different side of it is just another skill set. So I think my first habit to retire is overthinking my own ability to do the things that I haven't done before and to just try them and get going. And then I would say that my if I can, did you have a question or should I give you my?
Yeah, no, that was okay. Carry on. Yeah, great. Keep going.
So my second would be, I've gotten into a really bad habit, and I think it's really important to acknowledge this because I talk to people and they say to me really frequently, like, how do you get so much done? You're such an impressively proactive person. You're really efficient. I'm a human. I get into bad habits myself and I need to get out of that. And one of the things that I've been doing lately, which is so terrible, is rather than getting a book in the morning, I fell into a gap. I was a gap between books and I was too tired to think about finding a new book and so I ended up watching 30 minutes of a TV show in the morning with my coffee, which is such a bad habit because I think it sets me in a very visually overstimulated start to my day. And I think actually sitting down and making sure that I'm prioritizing the stuff that enriches me, which is reading a book and not getting into, the scroll or the allure of digital services that are designed to always have content that always, to always hook you in. So I think that would be my second one, is to make sure that I am actually really focusing on the thing that I love doing, which is reading in the morning and not occasionally falling into the trap of watching something instead. Interesting.
It's that procrastination that feels good in the moment.
Yeah.
But then you step back and you think, well, this isn't sustain. I don't want to sustain this.
No.
Is that serving me?
Yeah, it just doesn't in the long run actually make me feel good.
Yeah. No, and you said something as well about being overstimulated by the TV. So one thing I noticed on my dyslexic journey into randomness is that when I was university, etc., if I had an exam and I'd seen a TV before the exam, my mind was like treacle. I really couldn't focus on what I was writing. So I clocked it and I walked through my university house holding things up so I wouldn't look at it because it was that that distracted by squirrels, etc. I was just like, it really, like what you said. I was just like, yeah, I'm that's me too. If I see a screen, I'm gone. And it's much harder now in today's age to not see a screen, like while you're working as well. So it's about making sure that actually being focused on the things that matter and that working with intent and focus really, really does resonate.
That's so fascinating. And firstly, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that because, when you have to give up something that everybody else is just enjoying because you have a special circumstance that means that it doesn't work for you. I really, really relate to that. So having a neurological disability, I don't drink alcohol because it just isn't compatible with the existing chaos that's happening in the electrical activity of my brain. And, it's something that everybody does. And it's such a huge part of, people's lives. So having to give that up and you start to struggle to connect with people and things. I imagine, if you're trying to cut back on screens, like I don't use social media. I use it for work. I have a work LinkedIn, but I don't use social media because I felt like the doom scrolling is very easy to fall into because they're very cleverly designed systems to keep us pulled in, to keep us hooked in, and that's not benefiting us. We get told that social media is there to provide information and to connect you with people, but actually it's not. It's there for a company to make money, and to pull yourself away from that. Same with TVs. They're there to sell advertising or to sell TV licenses. It's not actually there for you. And to make that kind of radical decision of self-care, well, good on you for doing that. And I can imagine how hard that was.
I I dip in and out, but yeah, it is. It's that I know what's good for me, and actually, the older I've got, the better I've been at sort of sustaining it as well. But I do love a procrastination.
I mean, procrastinate. Don't get me wrong. Like, I would like to clarify, I'm not perfect. I procrastinate all the time.
Yes, it's cool. Right. So that's a bit about you. One of the things I always like to talk about is things you've seen about teams on your journey as well. So, and one of the caveats as well, we're going to go into bigger business as well after this. So what is it you see in high performing teams, and what are the habits that you see in high performing teams that you think people should know about?
Can I call communication a habit? And the habit of prioritizing communication. Like, I think understanding the importance of communication. So 9 times out of 10, when I talk to a new founder and I say to them, so I do a discovery call before we start working on a project, and I say, what's keeping you up at night? What's your biggest problem? 9 times out of 10, and obviously this is part of them coming to me because I'm the person that helps you get more shit done. 9 times out of 10, it's I can't get enough shit done in the company. And they say my team isn't delivering, my team isn't doing what I'm expecting them to. And always the solution is that they haven't asked the team properly how to do what is expected of them. And communication is so hard in any situation, but 10 times harder in a crazy environment of a startup where you don't know what you're doing. If you're building a disruptive company, by definition, you don't know what you're doing because you're disrupting what's already happened before. So you're trying things out, and so no one really knows what's going on. Communicating what you need to be done within a week, within a day, in an environment where you're not actually sure what's coming in the next couple of months is really, really hard. And so the teams that I see that are high performing, they've found systems, often taught by me, to help them communicate more effectively. So how they split synchronous and asynchronous communication, what is information sharing versus problem solving and communication, like that for me, the habit of good communication.
Yeah, that really resonates, because it's funny because you don't necessarily know what. So I have a program as well, and one of the modules we focus on for a month is influence, and actually that influence is how you might get people home on time, right? And you don't get home on time when you haven't communicated what someone else needs to do correctly, because you then end up mopping it up or saving the day or whatever it is. So actually the reason you get home late is because you haven't communicated clearly what you needed. And I love that you've come into like the same bit of understanding of no, the thing you really need for your team to be effective is to be able to communicate and influence them.
Yeah. And how do you define influencing in your programs?
I think influence is about sharing what's in your head. And I think it's an interesting one, because I think we're probably different ends of the spectrum. So raving dyslexic, I try my hardest never to write anything down. So,
I love to write everything.
Yeah. But so when I talk to people, I always aim for the most succinct single sentence I can to make sure it's as clear as it can be. I think that's why it helps me coach and things like that. So when I'm listening to people, like, right, what are you really saying? What trying to, and then reflect it back. It's like, oh, you're just saying X then, aren't you? And people are like, yeah. When you take someone's 5-minute monologue and you give them one line back, it's amazing clarity that it helps. And actually that's probably the thing I think about influence is about really being clear about what you want from other people. And it's keeping it authentic to a person's style as well. So it's not telling them this is the structure you need to say this in. It's you need to say what, so it matters to you. It resonates with the team. You can't teach that, and you can't pre-plan either of those, because one leader and one team may have different sort of ways of communicating. So you've really got to think about it, and you've got to be clear, got to be really concise. Actually, what's the opposite to disingenuous? Because I can't think of the other side of that coin.
Ingenuous, a word? Genuine.
Genuine. That's right. It's genuine. Yeah, you got to be genuine with
English.
My head was like, you're not having that word. It's the other side of that wall. But like that genuine, need, that genuine communication. So yeah, that's really what I think influence about.
I think it's really interesting because obviously I love words, and I'm a writer. My undergrad was philosophy and English, and I've written 5.5 books. I will finish the next one. But I also really believe in the single sentence communication, and I really believe in quantitatives. So both my, two of my parents, I'm lucky enough to have three. Two of my parents were mathematicians, and the love of numbers in our household was very firmly instilled in all of us. And being able to communicate in quantitatives, I think, is so important because it removes so much ambiguity. So, you know, subjectivity, when I say to a company, what do you want to do? And they say, we want to revolutionize, we want to disrupt, we want to be the biggest. I'm like, what does it actually mean? What number are you trying to hit here? If you want to be the biggest, how much is the other person making? What's £1 on top of that? Like the quantitative single structure communication. I use the framework in the objectives that I set. So I have a 6-stage strategy framework, and the second stage of it is about setting your objectives. And I always use the format, take figure A from value X to value Y by Z date. So what are you moving? Where is it today? Where do you want to get it to go? And when do you need it to be done by? There's no room for ambiguity in that. You answer binary, yes or no, did you achieve that goal? And so I think turning is something that I see in a lot of ops people, and why I love speaking with other ops people, is that we can take this chaos and this vision and this excitement, which is such a huge part of startups, and you don't want to lose that. You don't want to tidy things up and process things up to the point where the ingenuity is gone, but we can turn that into numbers. If it moves or it makes a sound, you can stick a quant metric on it. I think it's really important.
Especially today's day and age, there is a platform for every metric you ever want to find. Stuff that you couldn't have measured 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. Now there is someone's worked out how to measure it, and it doesn't have to be that over invasive measurement. It can just be some of those metrics in the background that you're looking at. And one of the ones with the people is always your employee the ENPS, the employee net promoter scores, always really a teller for me, because the companies that nail that are the ones that really have that go forward. And when the employees aren't engaged, actually, that's where you have a real challenge, I think. Like my journeys.
Yeah, it's so important. So I always say that ops for me in startups exists in this triangle that is your operations person, your finance person, and your people person, because the question that you need to ask in that triangle is, what are we trying to achieve? How much do we need to get in revenue, or how much is it going to cost to do it? And how are we motivating and incentivizing the people to get it done? So for me, communicating with people effectively is a decider of the efficiency of your business. You know, employee retention is an important cost driver. If you're retaining your employees, you're not spending as much on replacing them. And I think the importance of that, the importance of the clear communication to make people feel like they want to stay in an organization, that's how to run efficiently. It's all about the people.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Okay, so one more question on the world of teams. So I think we've both alluded it slightly. The power of an ops leader is to influence those around them. How do you frame sort of mentoring and coaching within those ops leaders for those teams? How do you talk to them about it?
How do I talk to ops leaders about influencing?
About that coaching, mentoring. So when you want to introduce it, what is the way you introduce it? People, because sometimes you can turn up into an organization and like, yeah, everyone just does their job and they're great. And you're like, how do you get them there? And they're like, well, they just do it. If I was a customer, I was like, yeah, my team just do stuff. I don't coach them, don't one-to-one. Why should I bother? Like, if I'm running a team, why should I bother with coaching, mentoring, training people?
So most of the organizations that I work with, by the nature of them being an earlier stage business and B, someone who needs my services, isn't in that bracket of they wouldn't be able to answer that question of, yeah, things just happen, because it's always things aren't happening. How do I get more shit done? So for me, I always have an issue that needs to be fixed, and it's more often than not about communication. So getting people interested in communication comes in my side from a very specific need. So there's a genesis of the need for a service like mine. It's like, we can't achieve this thing. We're either struggling to raise funding or we're struggling to deploy funding in a way that is efficient. And, you know, the need comes from, well, this is how you solve that problem. And so I always start from that base of why this is important. So I talk so passionately about the importance of quantitatives in communication, but I think there's one element of your strategy, which your strategy being the number one communication tool for your organization of what needs to get done. There's one really important part of your strategy, which is qualitative. It's very subjective. It's your mission statement. It's a thing, why we're doing this thing. Like, why did you, as a founder, lose all your evenings and weekends and your stable income to decide to create this business? Because you care about this thing, solving this problem for your customers. And so if I can tie everything back to the business's capacity to solve that problem, then for me, it helps answer the why of what we're doing. So I lay things out in my 6-stage strategy framework, and we tie everything back to the mission statement. So even if it is employee retention or employer NPS, that's a driver of cost, or that's a driver of your ability to deliver this mission. And so for me, the why is always that mission of the business, why you should do that. But, if I do find a team that is saying, we're really happy with how things are going and it's something else that they want me to work on, I won't ever try and stamp on that. Like, I don't feel the need to come in and say, I've got this system and this process that could be amazing. Because I think in a startup, you have to prioritize what is the burning issue that you need to fix. Like, yeah, your team could probably be doing a bit better, but at the moment, it's not the thing that is going to set your business on fire. Let's put that out first, and then we'll have to think about that in the future.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah. I love the idea of like that. There's no point putting a system in if it's not going to fix the problem in front of you. There's things you've tried and tested elsewhere, but actually, if there's a fire over there, it's not going to put your fire out. You're still going to have the fire, and it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I've probably covered everything that I wanted to cover for businessy type, like just business scale questions as well. You've segued between them beautifully. So I've got some quick fire questions to wrap this up, if that's okay. So
is this when you have to do the word association, and it turns out that you don't really like cats?
No, cats are... Do you not like cats? Are you a dog person then?
No, I'm very much a cat. I'm very much an animal person. I've been a vegetarian since I was 4, and I went to a farm and I learned that beef was cow, and that was just it for me. Which I tell you was tough in Merthyr Tydfil in the late 80s. But I'm definitely a cat. I like that cats, you have to really earn their trust, and I respect that about them. When someone makes you do that rapid fire, like cow dog, you're like, oh, I didn't know that I was going to answer that way.
Okay, cool. Now we've done the cow dog cat questions. And I think Merthyr Tydfil would have been tough in the 80s if you weren't a vegetarian. Either way, no, I have lots of lovely friends from Merthyr Tydfil, but it's a very tough part.
Yeah, the miners' strike was not a great thing for many of the places that I lived as a child.
No, cool. So, likely questions. Just 4 questions. I've got 5 fingers up. I don't know why. 4 questions. Right, question number 1. You're facing a tight deadline. What is your time management habit to make sure it happens?
Oh my God, Asana. Stick it in Asana. Have a project management system. I 90% of my brain is Asana.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Your team has just achieved a major milestone. What's the habit of celebration there?
Oh, inclusive celebration. I hate how much I see people going to the pub to celebrate these things. Inclusive celebration. So something that considers all the different needs of the different individuals in the team. So some kind of day out.
Nice. Okay, cool. Dealing with a difficult stakeholder. What's your one tip?
Communication. Just communication. Have more conversations with that person. Bring them in. Tell them things. Ask them things. I love to listen. You basically, like, being a COO is a little bit like being a very, very unlicensed therapist. So having to listen. So why is this? What are you afraid of here? And I think. I'm so sorry, this is not a rapid fire answer, but I care so much about these things. People get scared. We live in a capitalist society, and it only really works if people feel a little bit scared all the time that someone else has more. And so when I find someone who isn't able to perform, it's often because they're afraid of what's coming. And explaining to people, don't need to be afraid. We're pulling everyone in, and that is my long fire answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice long fire. It's dead on though. If someone's not in it, there's no point telling them what to do. You got to pull them in very slowly and get them on board. Cool. You'll love this question. I can only read one book on ops. What book should I read?
Play Bigger. So
Play Bigger.
Play Bigger. Have you read it?
No. Tell me, what's the brief summary?
So it's about how to define a category by associating your solution with the problem. So they take, for example, when Uber was first launched, people didn't know that they had a problem with transport because you just accepted that, if you wanted to get somewhere for cheap, you'd take a bus and you'd take a slightly longer route. If you wanted to get somewhere quickly, you'd have to take like a traditional taxi service that would be very expensive. They didn't know that they had a problem until someone came in and said, well, what if there was a different way? And Play Bigger is a really fantastic way of looking at category definition by looking at the problem and how you associate yourself with that problem when people don't know that they need a solution. And I think that's perfect for ops because it dives into the customer centricity of a good strategy. And any good strategy has a leitmotif of customer centricity. I don't just say that as someone who spent 3 years at the altar of Amazon's customer centricity. These are your customers, they're the people who are giving you money. You should be prioritizing them.
100%. You can question the tax motivations of Amazon, but you can't question their customer focus, can you?
You can question their employee focus. You can't question their customer focus.
No, cool. Okay. What's your one go-to habit to make sure that you finish on time?
Calendar blocking. So my calendar is a multicolored, scheduled dream of a thing. So I always block out my time. So like even to the point where it says at 6 o'clock in my calendar, get up, and then it says like 7:30, get ready. So I've had an hour and a half of coffee, and then I do these different chunks of time. So for me, it's always chunking time. So I look into Asana in the morning. What do I need to get done? Block chunks in, make sure I've got time allocated, and then I finish when the calendar tells me to finish.
You're doomed if someone hacks your calendar, aren't you? And starts telling you what to do. Just like, why am I doing this?
Hello, everybody listening. Please don't hack my calendar. Everyone will know that it's just a mirage.
It's like Anchorman, where they change the teleprompter. I don't know if you've seen that. He reads anything that's put in front of him.
Oh, I haven't seen Anchorman. I missed that. I feel like everyone talks about it and I haven't seen it. I probably know the memes without having actually.
You probably know the memes, but he reads whatever's put in front of him on the teleprompter.
Amazing.
Last question. What are the final words of wisdom that you want to give to anyone who's aspiring to work their way up to be through that world of ops leader, wherever they are on their journey?
Learn how to communicate with clarity and to explain to people what is expected of them in a way that is so clear that everyone can also understand how well they're doing against that expectation. Because as an ops person, you're only as good as the team that you're working with. You're only as good as how much the people that you're leading are able to get done. So learn the importance of good communication, good delegation, good transparency.
Amazing. Brilliant. Love it. Thank you very much. Now, one final thing, is there anything you'd like to tell the people watching this about anything that's coming new to Pay As You Go COO? What should we be looking out for?
Yes, you should look out for the thing that's making me have an emotional breakdown every single day, which is rebuilding my website. So I tried to take my own advice and launched a very early version of the website when I first rebranded from just me consulting under my name into Pay As You Go. And so I've been spending the last couple of weeks going ever so slightly insane for trying to rebuild my website. So that will be coming. Go to www.payasyougocoo.com. Yes, I did regret that domain name every time I have to type it out. And check out the exciting new website. So you can see the coaching packages there and then the kind of problem-solving consulting packages that I have there.
Amazing, cool. And what we'll do is we'll post any of the links as well. As you mentioned, you've got a blog as well. So
yes,
give me any links you want, we'll drop that into the notes as well. You also mentioned that you're cursing yourself for typing Pay As You Go COO. Also, that all your dyslexic employees with very long names not going to enjoy typing that every time they need to.
Yes, I did buy 4 domain names. So I also bought PAYGCOO.com. So maybe it's time to change the emails over to that. Or just give everyone clickable links because that's the official.
I don't think anyone types anything. It's all just typing links and clicking. No. Cool. So that has been our conversation on Ops Up Inside Your Head. If you've enjoyed this, there'll be more of this. There's more on YouTube, LinkedIn, and this is going to be going up on as a podcast very shortly as well. Make sure you follow me on LinkedIn and you follow Milly as well. If there is anything else, you can leave us some questions in the comments, and I'm sure we'll have a look. Have a lovely day.